Today on Food for Thought, I couldn't help myself. It's time to start organising your cleansing routines. I know, last week it was all about love and sex, and this week it's all about cleansing. Right, ready for a good spring clear out? I certainly hope so. So I thought I'd invite the fabulous colon hydrotherapist Lisa Arthur from Guildford along to talk with me about cleansing your bowels. Yeah, no shit. Hi Lisa, how are you today?
Hi Debbie, I'm fine. Thank you very much, and thanks for the invite onto the show. I really appreciate it. Yeah. Yes, and let's start talking about the things that people don't like to talk about.
Indeed. So, how did someone like yourself become a colon hydrotherapist? Because I'll be honest, my careers officer when I was at school didn't say, "I've got this cracking job for you." It's getting out other people's poo. So tell me, how did you end up doing colonics?
Well, I think a lot of people who come into a particular therapy or trade or school of thought start with themselves. And in my 20s and early 30s, I was partying a lot. I had a really great time living in London, doing the thing, living the life. And I started to get some health niggles, not surprisingly, mostly like a really dull lower backache and all this kind of stuff. And I kind of ignored it. And actually I ended up going to university, quitting the whole of the London scene and going to university at about age 32. And when I went to university, I started looking after myself and I started studying and was into yoga and didn't party so hard, and I wasn't having that really full-on London life. And I thought that I would get better, but I didn't. So backache went to stomach cramps, heart. I mean, there was loads of they start off as niggles, don't they? And then they become actually quite serious stuff, constant heartburn, hot flushes, all that kind of thing. So I did the normal thing, which would be to go to the doctors, and I got plugged into the system, and they started doing lots of investigations. And this went on for a long time, like a year, and I did not get any. In fact, I was on medication, and I'm sure you've heard this lot, and it got worse and worse and worse. So when they started talking about doing investigations for cancer, I just said that was enough. I'm done here. And I walked out of the consultation and I just sat on a rock almost and looked out and went, come on, there's got to be a different way. There's got to be a different way. And I started getting an education on my health. And that was a long time ago because I got well. I was a raw fooder. I had colon hydrotherapy. I cleaned my system. I put some good stuff back into my system. I changed my perception of my health and took full responsibility. Now, that sounds great, but then I went and developed my career after I finished university and got back into some bad habits, which when you're feeling well is actually, oh, I'm fine, I'll have a glass of wine. I'm fine, I'll have this pizza or burger or whatever it is. Don't worry, I'll be fine on 5 hours sleep, blah, blah, blah. And so I had another, wake-up call about a year ago and just stared at my computer one morning and said, I'm sick again. I could feel it. When you have this, the niggles start to come back, maybe a little twinge in the back or a little bit of heartburn or a little bit of fatigue. And it was almost kind of like the signs are coming back, and I thought I'm gonna have to do some serious work. So I happened across something that happened across something else, and I just ended up walking past this colon hydrotherapy centre within a clinic, and I just looked at this particular colon hydrotherapy setup, which I hadn't seen. I had only seen it when I was in America. And Tony Robbins and all the raw fooders and all that big movement, the personal development movement, which is what I'm very interested in. They all use this particular system. And I just looked at it and I said to myself, that's what I'm going to do. Because I need to be the example, and I know what it's like to be sick, and I can help other people. So I literally the next day went to the owner of that business and said, right, I'm going to come and work with you. I'm going to do all the marketing because that's my background, and we're going to work it like this. And that was it. And literally that week I jacked the job in, and that was that. And if you'd have told me that was what I was going to do when the careers advisor said, what would you like to do when you grow up? So I'd like to be cleaning people's colon for a living. And actually the reality of it is that I'm helping people to help themselves to health. And if the careers offer had said to me, what do you want to do? I would probably knowing what I know now, back then say something like, I'd like to help people to help themselves to better health. I'd like to empower people to understand to what they need to do, to educate them, to give them a platform for self-responsibility. And, that would have shut the careers officer up, wouldn't it?
Indeed.
Unfortunately, it wasn't. I actually wanted to be a physiotherapist. But that's another story. But yeah, so, and that's how we get here. And I think with a lot of people, we go and we meander, don't we? Maybe a little bit of this, maybe a little, and then you go, you know what? I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do it. It's got to the point where I can't not do it. I feel the calling. Other people just look at me, oh, how can you feel that calling? And the reason I'm doing the colonic hydrotherapy is because it doesn't matter how much you tell somebody they have to drink more water, or they have to eat better food, or they have to exercise, or they have to take supplements, or they have to, whatever it is, people really struggle. They struggle to stay on the wagon, or they need a clear out before they start their journey. And that's my part of the helping them with their journey, I guess. Mm.
It's really interesting when you say about that you took responsibility and you're helping other people to take responsibility. I had Keith Hearn and Beata Sinclair on the show just recently. It was a show on cancer. I know you know Keith Hearn.
Yeah.
And in effect, both of them gave a very clear message that they'd taken responsibility for their health and they hadn't handed it over to anybody else.
And if I can... I had a client this week and she had not been to the toilet for 3 weeks. That's 63 meals. 63 meals that were in her system. And she had not been to the toilet, hadn't passed a movement, had a bowel movement, whatever you want to call it, for 3 weeks. And she had did all these other things, and she came to me, she said, I just want to, have it all cleared out. I said, but I'm not going to let you do that. I need to show you that you need to take responsibility for what goes in the first place, and she'll need to go to see other people. But she got it. She finally got it, because I don't think other people had said to her, well, maybe you need to think about what's going in. Maybe you need to think about what you're thinking about, and maybe letting go of some stuff, because she had a lot of emotional issues. And if I can just ask people a few questions and let them be open to the possibility that they could make themselves well, and they could get their bowel moving, and they could detox, and they could feel better, then it's us against the traditional medical approach.
It's absolutely fascinating. I have clients arrive, and I'll be honest, I've never had anyone go for 3 weeks without moving their bowels, but it has been, the longest I've had with a client is about 2 weeks. And the doctors have said that is absolutely fine. There's no issue.
Sorry. You're like, yes, of course that's fine to have 42 dinners in your body. Absolutely great. We said, did you know in hospitals in just pre the 60s, colonics were a part of the process. They were very fashionable. So people had a colonic or an enema or a clear out before and after surgery, pregnancy and all that kind of stuff. It was the norm. But when pharmaceutical medicine was introduced, laxatives and pain and all this kind of stuff, and other medication, which clearly makes other people, other businesses a lot of money, then colonics just went out of fashion and they're frowned on a lot. But they were, they've been doing them since Romans and in ancient India and all that kind of stuff. But it's always been around. But it just happens from the 60s up until really fairly recently that just wasn't fashionable, which is a shame. I know what I'd rather do. I don't want to take laxatives or anything like that. I want to be naturally clean with water.
Until 1979, enemas were actually in the Merck manual.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. And they just fall out of fashion, right? Because, drugs come in and it's supposed to be more efficient to have drugs and things, because if you've got to have someone come in for a colonic or an enema, then that's actually more fiddly than just giving them a tablet. So
give us a little bit of history behind colonics, because you started there and irrigating the bowels. It'd be interesting just to go into that a little bit.
Yeah, I think, but I'm just trying to think where to start. I knew a lot of history when I trained to be a yoga teacher about 15 years ago. I knew a lot of history about cleansing or salt cleanses, and they call it lahu in yoga. Salt cleanses and cleansing the body, and they call it purging, fasting, and this has been done since the very early recorded, in the yogic texts years ago, in ancient times, and it was considered to be quite a spiritual practice back then as well. So that if one fasts and clears the body of food, one can have a clearer thought. And then the heart mind can connect and clearer thought, clarity, focus, better prayer, all that kind of thing. And a lot of the yogis, and yoga was really only done with the higher castes. A lot of the yogis would fast or purge to be able to do more spiritual work. And then if you compare that kind of approach to colonics with maybe the Romans. Now, the Romans, if you know about them, were incredibly clean creatures, and they had lots of hot baths and oil wash and all the rest. And part of their cleaning regime was to have colonic irrigation or colonic lavage or colonic hydrotherapy. And so that was considered the absolute norm for somebody to have a clean body. And it's been around since then, and in different guises, like anything comes and go in fashion. But I think the reason it's becoming popular again in the last maybe 10 or so years, because people are now almost coming full circle and saying one of two things. Medicine is not helping me. The laxatives aren't helping. I want to look at an alternative, or I want to be detoxing, and part of that detox is to have a colonic because I want to have a clean bowel. So, or the other ones are that, there's something seriously wrong and I don't want to go to the doctors about it because they say they can't do anything for me.
So as a naturopath, we believe that about 80% of health is actually created in the gut area. So most of my work, no matter what you come in with, I'll be honest, actually, I start with, hydrating and getting that bowel to function properly. Is this your perspective on good health?
I think so, because if you think about, why do people have a digestive problem? Most people do have a digestive problem. I don't know whether you agree with me, but most people, whether they come to see you or me or whoever, have a problem with eating or their stomach or their bowel. And if you think of the reason why, they're stressed, they have a busy life, they eat. We all are tempted by food-like substances, not actual food, processed food. We eat on the go, at our desks, in the car, standing up. We eat too quickly, we don't chew it enough, we don't drink enough water. So all good health starts with what you put in and the way you put in it into your system. And also the consideration one gives to food. If you look at some of the Asian cultures, I hung around with a Korean healing group for about 3 years a while back, and every time they ate, there were food blessings and prayers and offerings, and the fruit was and the vegetables were cleaned very carefully, and it was just this very respectful way with food, and we've just totally lost it. So all health starts with well-being starts with the gut, because everybody's shoveling the wrong stuff in. And if you were putting the right stuff in, your health would be great, because then you can digest. You're taking everything from the food, right? So rubbish in, rubbish out, or not out, gets stuck. And it does. Everything has to be there, because you also have the center of your solar plexus, which is the energetic center, smack bang in the middle of all the organs. So it's you don't have to be either left field and hooky kooky or scientifically adept at making that statement and thinking, well, okay, well, she may have a point. If the energetic center with it to do with emotions is in the gut, and we're stressed, and our stomach is taking in the wrong food, and if we're stressed, there's no attention to the digestive system, so it doesn't work properly. It doesn't take a genius, a therapist, a doctor, or anybody apart from those without common sense to realise that's a serious issue. And of course, it's going to be the centre of everything.
It's fascinating that lots of my clients actually know it's impacting on their gut area, but do not make the big association, in all honesty. And I think that's partly because the stress element actually takes them from their frontal cortex into their hindbrain, and then, and in effect, they stop that thinking, or that true thinking, and making that connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about many connection, I've been seeing clients recently who are on medication, which is blocking the signal between the brain and the muscles.
Yes.
And you find that with antidepressants. I don't know what else you find it with particularly, but I've had 3 clients recently, all on antidepressants, and their bowels are, it's like, you know more about this medication than me. I don't know about the medication, but from what I'm gathering and what I've looked up and what they've told me, if that medication blocks some kind of receptor, there's side effect. It's also blocking the signal to the bowel, and it's almost like that signal, that automatic call to go, or the ability to even connect with the muscles to push and give the signal to the body that I'm full, I need to release. It's just been blocked by medication. And, there's the rub, isn't it? You take the medication for a particular condition and then you have a side effect.
Well, the effect is that, it's an inhibitor, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the reaction of the body is still fundamentally happening underneath all that. The medications are over the top of that, then inhibiting that response.
Yeah, and it's funny because I don't then, you kind of go, well, okay, you're just going to have to come keep seeing me, which you don't particularly want to do. No. But until we can retrain their bowel, because some people have been on these medications for years, retrain the bowel and reconnect, which is something that colon hydrotherapy does. And the way we do it, we use a particular system called the Libby system, which is what they call an open system. So you're lying down, and there's a very small tube that's inserted into the rectum, just like a small pencil. And you're lying down, and your feet are either side of almost like an open hole. And the hole goes down into a drain just like it would do with a toilet. And the reason we use this system is because it retrains the bowel very quickly, because the water comes in and then the client is able to listen to their body. They feel a little bit full, and then they can just practice squeezing the muscles. And I don't have to be involved in any of that process. They're covered with a towel, they squeeze the muscles, and then they start to reconnect. And when they squeeze the muscles, the water comes out around the tube and goes down the toilet. And with a lot of people who haven't been for 3 weeks, we'll get them to do this repetitive muscle and push just because the body hasn't done it. If you haven't been to the loo for 3 weeks, your muscles, it's like if you don't go to the gym. I don't know what to do. I don't know. And then you have to try and get those muscles. And even it's not just the muscles of the intestine, it's the muscle of the rectum as well. You need to get them moving. It's almost like they have to remember what they're supposed to do.
That's fascinating. I know a number of my clients, I tend to use enemas first. If I have someone with serious compaction, I will send them to a colon hydrotherapist. But what's fascinating for me is that lots of clients often feel that it's taboo, it's something that you shouldn't do, and that it's going to damage the bowel in some way. Do you want to just talk about that aspect of things? Because that is a perspective that I get. And just recently a client has said to me it's not 100% safe doing even an enema.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. If we back up, if we talk about the enemas that you use and the colonics that I use in comparison, so that people understand maybe the difference.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So really, for me, an enema is something that you would do at home. You can have a small bulb with a tube in it that holds water, and you push the tube into the bottom with the water. Or you can have, I don't know whether you use these, but like a hot water bottle shaped bottle. You hook it on the door handle, you lie on the floor, and you put the tube into your bottom that way. So the water goes in, then you switch the switch off, then you get up, and then you release into the toilet. Yep. So it's like a home system. And there's different kinds of that. And what happens is a lot of the bowel, just you go into the rectum and there's almost like a smiley shape of just the bottom part of the colon. A lot of that is where it gets stuck, and the enema will just get the water really into that first part, won't it?
Yeah.
I think that once, if somebody can do an enema like that, once that first bit's started, then the body also goes, oh, hang on a minute. and it kind of kicks in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's, if we had people doing enemas, which I would fully support at home, I'd be out of a job, and I'd be very happy to be out of a job if that's what people do. We talk about taking responsibility.
Yeah.
With the colon hydrotherapy, the water goes in, and because it's a continual flow of water, the water comes up and it goes further into the colon than when just an enema would do. And I've already explained the approach. But whether one does an enema or a colonic, there is a massive fear, I think, around it. A massive fear. And when people come to me in the clinic, they look at the equipment, and you can see sometimes their face drains of colour. And we have to kind of sit down and go, it's going to be okay, because you're coming in to do something that's actually very gentle. But I think the taboo reason is that it's not fashionable in modern medicine anymore. Doctors are concerned about it. There are parts of the colon hydrotherapy, not now, but in the recent past, that have been unregulated. And I think there is a misunderstanding about the ability of the colon coming into the system. The colon is not going to get to the point where you put water in it and it's going to blow, going to burst. That doesn't happen. I mean, there are contraindications if there are certain conditions that people have which aren't suitable. If you've had surgery or anything like that, you're not going to be able to have a colonic if you've had surgery in that area. I mean, that's just common sense. But the colon is a muscle and it absorbs water. So if you introduce water into it, it's going to stretch and it's going to respond really well to it, especially it responds very well. But people don't like talking about their bottom poo. They don't like talking about the fact they haven't been for 3 weeks, and I'm laughing because it is funny. Farting makes people laugh, like, and it's like, well, it's better out than in, but it is still taboo to talk about poo. And this is my mission. My mission is to start talking about it, because unchecked, if you don't go for 3 weeks, this poor woman, if you don't go for 3 weeks and every now and again you have you're going to get colon cancer or bowel cancer. End of.
And you're going to get heightened inflammation as well, aren't you? She's
and toxics and all sorts of side effects. I mean, just crazy stuff. And it starts off as a little bit of a headache and something else and something. But anyway, so why is it taboo and why don't people like it? Well, people don't, certain people are all right with it, and we won't have that conversation. There's a certain niche, but people don't like things up their bum. They don't. It's just this completely alien thing. Now, what's ironic, if we were in France, we'd be fine, because they put all their medication up their bum. That's where they put their tablets. That's where they, because it's highly absorbable material. The inside of the rectum and the colon is highly absorbable. So the French, that's where they put their medicine. They wouldn't dream of taking it in their stomach. Oh, it's unbelievable. How ridiculous. Because it's highly absorbable material. But people don't like to talk about it. Poo smells, farts are embarrassing. And this is part of the problem, because people hold it all in because they don't want to let it out. And it's taboo. It's just not polite society, is it? It's just, well, yes, I didn't like to talk about the fact I didn't go for 3 weeks. Well, do you want to talk about the fact you got colon cancer? Now, let's just have a conversation about it. And we do see actually 50% men and 50% women. And all, men are even worse at talking about poo and their bottoms and things like this. But we know that a man really likes a good fart and really likes to sit on the toilet. But they don't like to talk about it. But, why is it taboo? Why do you think it's taboo? I don't. I mean, I've always talked about poo. It's never been an issue. I ask people, how many times have put, what do you mean? I never count. You don't even look at it? What do you mean you don't look at it? You've got to look at it. People, and you go, and they find it, they're quite affronted, because if someone says, I'm not feeling well, have you had a poo today? Well, if you hadn't had a poo for a couple of days, I'm not surprised. Have some water.
I remember years ago when I was part of the raw food scene, right from the word go, I remember going to a lecture, I think it was by Fred Pescu, and organised by Fresh Network. This is a long time ago. And every single time I went to a lecture or a workshop with loads of raw foodies, I would sit down and the people next to me would start talking about bowel movements. And I just found it absolutely fascinating that I could not get through a whole raw food workshop without somebody talking about their bowel movements. I remember
we're obsessed with it. Yeah, it's just... but that's what it should be. Sorry, do carry on.
But then I remember this guy sitting down next to me in this lecture, and I'll be honest, guys, I just went, "Oh, he's attractive." And 2 minutes into the conversation, he was talking about his bowel movements. I was just thinking, can I not get away from this?
It's not romantic.
It's
not the kind of first date material. No,
he didn't get my phone number.
Oh dear. But that's the thing. It really shouldn't be. And I'm not saying let's have lunch and talk about, your bowel movements. I'm not saying that. Let's just say that, if you do have a problem with it, please just go and ask, or tell someone.
So why does food get stuck in the bowel from from your perspective?
Why do people have constipation and don't go? Yeah. My personal opinion is stress.
Right.
And the effect of stress on the body. Everybody says, oh, well, you should try and relax, or you should drink more water, or you should meditate every day, or you should, quit your job and find something that you really love and you want to do. Well, hello, world. This is great for some people, and some people are going to do it. But most people run a pretty ragged life. They run around after the kids or other family, they've got a job, they're working, they're in front of the telly, they're pretty sedentary. And plus, they haven't been open to the education about what their lifestyle is doing to them. So here's the thing, I think everyone's going to be stressed. I don't think for the majority of people that's really going to go away. That's just part of modern life. And the problem with stress is that when we are stressed and adrenaline's running through our body and all the other chemicals, the digestion really gets ignored because there's not enough, the body can only really function on one big thing at a time and jump in at any time with the technical parts here. But really for me, if the body is stressed and you're under a chronic stress, which is every stress over a long period of time, plus a few acute episodes, which is a bit of trauma or an accident or a job loss or anything like that just compounds the amount of stress. And when you get stressed, the body gets hard and you hold on and you tighten up and the emotions are there. And if you can imagine, if you're listening to this, imagine the last time you were stressed. How was your body feeling? It wasn't relaxed and open, and you weren't drinking water and all that. You were probably just sitting in a corner, quite upset. Now, when that happens, the body fights, and the adrenaline and all the other chemicals that are coming in. And really, it's almost like the digestive system is in the corner going, hello, I'm here. And it's just like ignored. But we still eat. And when we're stressed, we probably don't eat the right things. Yeah, that's fine. But if we're stressed and the digestion is getting ignored and we're eating food, then the food can't be broken down. The body becomes quite acidic, and if the balance of acid and alkaline in the body, especially in the stomach, isn't right, then the food can't be broken down. But the food still goes through, and you put more in, and it still goes through. So the food goes through to the stomach, and it goes through to the small intestine, and the small intestine is going, oh, Christ, come on. There's some great big lumps in here, and it's really very dry, and there's not really enough water, but we'll do our best to take out the nutrients and the minerals and all the other things, and we'll just take the water out, and we'll maybe just do our best to do our job. But, oh, my goodness. And you imagine the small intestine being kind of worn out. It's got a really difficult job to do. It's on 24/7 shift, and it gets tired, and it kind of just... and the muscles are not really working out. And so you pour more food in. And so it's almost like you're pushing more food in at the top, and the food's just going through the stomach, and then it's going to the small intestine, and then it gets eventually to the large intestine, to the colon. It goes, oh, I can squeeze out a little bit. Oh, no, I can't. Oh, now I'm even a bigger lump. Oh, and well, no, don't worry, body. You don't have to stand up or exercise or move around. Just sit in at the sofa watching the telly, so I can just crush all these organs, and then eventually I might come out the other end a really dry pellet. That's, the strain and you've got to laugh about it, but if I don't make a joke of this, people aren't going to listen. If I said, well, your waste matter you're killing your system. You're putting this food inside, and it just goes like dry sponges. Yeah. And if the food's wrong and the poor stomach can't digest it, and the poor intestine only just manages to absorb a little bit, and then the colon can just about push it out. Oh my goodness! All that effort for a little rabbit pellet. Is it any wonder that people then say, I've got a headache, I'm tired, I can't get up in the morning, I can't sleep very well, I am farting like a brass band, I have a sore stomach. That's all of this. I've got food allergies, I've got bad breath, I've got dandruff, I've got eczema. Just like you said earlier, if most of one's health is around optimal gut function, and we are abusing our system, and you don't have to abuse it that much, a couple of Diet Cokes, maybe a panini and no vegetables and a takeaway dinner, that's still abusing your system, and no water is abusing your system, a couple of coffees. You don't have to, eat McDonald's all day. If we're doing that and the gut function is for optimal health and we're abusing it, and all the knock-on effects are also, all knock-on things are not happening, that's why we get into trouble. That's why and after a while the digestive system just goes, enough. And then what do? We go, oh, okay, I'll have some, I've got reflux. What do they call it? I've got reflux. No, you haven't. You're just eating the wrong things and probably drinking too much alcohol. Or you're not having wheatgrass or whatever it is, alkaline, super greens, all the rest of it. Your body's acidic. Don't take any medication, which is going to make it more acidic. Or your body's just out of balance. So you take the medication, and that messes up the system as well. And then you start getting candida, or you take antibiotics, and it just gets really messy. And it's like a knitted ball of wool, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So, you just, and you can't unravel it. After a while, you can't unravel it. And that's when we start getting the really, really bad symptoms. And I think that's why the digestion is in a mess, because it's a chain reaction. One little tiny thing at the beginning, and it's modern life. Modern life is a killer. It really, really, really is.
I find it absolutely fascinating, because I can see compaction of the bile in people as they're walking around. And
what do you look for?
Well, there's a whole roundedness about people, and from a certain point in their body, and in effect, I think, God, that must be just solid, absolutely solid, and it must be really heavy.
Yeah, and you can see it in people's eyes, can't you? Because once they've had a colonic, or probably, for example, this lady, we just use her as an example. Yeah. She had her second colonic, and she sent me an email to say, people have been asking me what I've been up to because my eyes are sparkling. Really so, it's because she's full up, and even in the eyes, and you wouldn't necessarily, if you didn't know, associate a clear eye colour with a clear system.
The thing is that for me, the majority of pain is often the bowels backing up, and then the liver feeling overloaded. Yeah, and we could talk about the liver in a whole different series, couldn't we? Because if the liver, bless him, I don't know how he manages it. I really don't. I mean, he's the seat of the anger as well, isn't it? I mean, that thing has got a tough job. But yeah, if you imagine you have, again, 63 dinners in you, and it's backing up, that liver's going to go into overdrive. Absolutely into overdrive. And where do the toxins then go? And you've got this, if people are listening to this and they're thinking, well, I go more than once every 3 weeks, I haven't got a problem. Optimal, and I could scare some people here. It should be 1 meal in, 1 meal out. So 1 in at the top, 1 out at the bottom. So that's like 3 a day. Now, people are going to just freeze. For me, I'd let you get away with 1. Not you, Debbie. Please don't go into my bowel movements.
No. We're talking about other friends. No, if we're talking about, if you're going less than once a day, I would say that you have a sluggish system and that you need to look at certain bits in your lifestyle that you need to change. Because more than 3 dinners or lunches or breakfasts and snacks in the system will cause toxicity. I don't know what you have to say about that, but if you're not going every day, you're going to be in trouble.
So on that, how can you identify if you need to go and have a colonic with someone like yourself?
Or even to do an enema, yeah. I think if, let's have a look at some of the symptoms that people come and see me for. So, bloated stomach, sore stomach after eating. Everybody has a little bit of wind, but if you have wind that is, like I said before, like a trumpet that is, that goes on all day. Some people have it that goes on all day. Some people have wind that is very foul smelling. And that's embarrassing for people. If you're in a meeting at work, if you're on the train or whatever, it is really embarrassing, and it can be debilitating as well. If you have a problem with wind, bloating after eating, if you have a hard stomach and you don't go for a week, those are the kinds of things. If you have little niggles that you can't identify, like a candida infection that won't go, like headaches or poor sleep or rashes on the skin, that kind of stuff. It's very often a case of the body is trying to get rid of the toxins in other areas, and it's just not happening. If you have a coated tongue or bad breath, or if you have dandruff or anything like that, then you didn't have before. Those are the kinds of things that I would say that you'd be looking out for. That's if you have a condition. The other thing is if you are looking after your health, which a lot of people who are listening are going to be looking after their health, and they're doing a liver flush, or they're doing a cleanse, or they're thinking about doing a detox, especially as we, coming up to spring. If you're looking at fasting, or if you're looking at any of those, colon cleansing or anything like that, that's another really good opportunity to have a cleanse. Because if your body is already in good health, hooray, then you decide to purge or fast or cleanse. It's not just food that your body gets rid of. Your body also has to get rid of dead blood cells and all that other kind of waste. So if you're not eating and you're purging, your body is going to be able to shed a lot of waste, and that gives the liver a break. And if you have a colon cleanse, that liver is going to just be the best. It's going to be your best friend. And you're going to encourage the liver to detox even more, especially when the body's resting. And then the other part, people come and see me because they've been travelling, or they've been across time zones. So that can really have a strange effect. Flying makes you quite constipated and dehydrated. You can pick up a bug while you're away if you're eating foreign food, especially in the water. And lots of people come and see me if they are working on the airlines. So that's also a good one. And then other people who come and see me if they're having, just before they have IVF or fertility treatment, that's a good thing to do. And after they've had a baby, if everything's okay with them, because having a baby can make you quite constipated. And if you're on a series of painkillers for something that's not related to any particular surgery or a bowel or a particular, painkillers can also make you really constipated. So, it's quite a broad spectrum. But I think people know that they need to do something. It's just that you can't kind of go say to your friend over a cup of tea, say, I haven't had a poo for a week. What do you think I should do? And they go, oh, because a lot of people don't know. And you just, which is why I'm creating a lot of stuff online that is quite easy to find, which is not anything related to colon hydrotherapy, but related to the things that people type in. I haven't been to the loo for a week. What should I do? So hopefully they'll be able to find some information and then be able to just get a little bit of education about it, and also recommended from other people.
Now, the different things you can do with colonics and enemas, things like coffee, wheatgrass, those sort of things. Can you just talk about those? Do you actually use implants and stuff like that?
We don't at the clinic as a rule, no. You can with the system that we have. But the type of client that we have at the clinic are the beginners.
Right.
And for beginners, if we start saying, well, I just like to put a little coffee in here, you know, they're a lot of people, it just happens to be our particular clinic, but our clinic are people who are generally nervous and quite unwell. Yeah. They're not the kind of people that are doing the cleanses. I would feel very comfortable about if somebody came up to me and said, right, I'm in good health and I'm on a fast or a cleanse and I want to introduce coffee or, there's loads. I mean, personally, I've done coffee and garlic and lemon and, I'm just trying to think of all the other things. It's a different kind of experience. And for me, a beginner, I'm just happy that they're there and they're on the bed. But I think for a deeper cleanse, you know, we'll talk about coffee. You know, there's a lot online, and there's a lot of noise around, taking the mickey out of, raw fooders and people who detox and cleanse to say, well, you know, the only time they have coffee is when they, put it up their backside.
It's true.
And it's true. The only place for coffee in our life is in a bucket hanging up on in the bathroom with a tube from it. And it was very interesting. I read an article the other day about a couple who had become addicted to coffee enemas. And I don't know how true this was, but they said that they were taking about 10 enemas a day. And I thought, well, how do you fit those in your day? Yeah. How can you fit 10 enemas in a day and still go to work? That is ridiculous. Yeah. But, I think one should treat any kind of implants with a huge amount of respect because you're going for a much deeper cleanse. And again, jump in at any time. But the coffee stimulates the liver, right? Yeah. And it allows the liver to have a much deeper cleanse. And the liver almost, you know, in really layman's terms says, oh, coffee, brilliant, really good wake-up call. I'll dump a ton of toxins because this coffee will stimulate all the things it needs to stimulate for the liver to be opened and all the capillaries open, and it just goes whoomp. And I think people don't realise that. So, you know, you're always going to get a reaction from a deeper cleanse. And I think for me, people who are more used to it would do implants. But that's just the people that we see and where I'm at. Personally, I think that we should all push the envelope a little bit and try for the deeper cleanse. But, you know, particularly with coffee. And it has to be the right kind of coffee. And, there's a particular kind of enema coffee. And it really smells, doesn't it? The enema coffee is really very strange smell. And, you know, if you have it in the house, it's almost like a nicotine-y smell. And it's, you know, it's to be treated with huge respect. It's to be treated with huge respect. And frankly, the garlic enema for me was a bit stingy. So I don't do those personally anymore. But I think with the rise of these detox holidays in places like Koh Samui and Thailand and a lot of the Asian countries, I don't think people really respect the deeper cleanse that it can do. And I think if you want to go for a deeper cleanse and you're ready for it, then speaking to somebody who is very experienced with implants would absolutely be the way to go. That's not my speciality.
I actually have had clients come to me who've been on these detox weekends or weeks in foreign places, and I'm actually picking up the pieces from. Yeah,
because they pick up a bug from the water as well, don't they? Oh.
Also, they've put them on numerous coffee enemas throughout the day and not actually replaced the minerals and things like this. So they've actually been very, very drained by the time they get back.
Yeah, and I mean they pick up bugs from the water because it's not, and the equipment's not always clean and that kind of stuff. I've done a few, and I would be very wary, I must admit. Let's talk about what happens. You know, the colon is cleansed with water, and ours is UV filtered and passed through UV light and 3 or 4 different filters, and it's very clean and it's temperature regulated. But it does take out quite a lot of the flora, the friendly bacteria in the bowel. Yeah. So what we do, as soon as a client has finished, we give them a very good quality probiotic, can immediately reseed the bowel, and give them 3 days worth of probiotics to go home with. And then if they want to buy some more online, they or at the shop, they can do that. But it's very important to put some of the good stuff back immediately. You know, the water doesn't differentiate between some of the good and some of the bad. It takes both of them out, and we want to make sure, and it's a very good opportunity then to reseed the bowel with a good quality probiotic. Yeah.
So do you have a detox and cleansing routine that you put clients through at this time of year that you can share with us?
We're going to be doing one when the weather changes. So I'm not a great advocate of a January cleanse after Christmas. I think it is completely commercial. I'm not even going to start on there because I should be ranting for the next hour.
I was moving into the spring more than.
But moving in, that's why we don't do it in January. But moving into the spring, yes, absolutely. And what we're going to invite people to do is to come and sit with us for a couple of hours and talk about where they're at, what they want to do, why they want to do it, and give them the education rather than just give them the pack to go with. And it would be around, when the weather changes, we start to eat slightly different foods. It'll be around maybe introducing some either flax or psyllium husks into their diet, so everything starts to soften, about introducing more water, so that by the time they come to over a few days period, and taking out, all the stimulants, the caffeine, the wheat and the dairy, so by the time they come and see us for their colonic can be a very deep cleanse. And then they have a series of colonics. They have colonic on day 1, day 4, if they can do that, or maybe day 5 or 6, and then they come back a month later. And that way and they have a program in between that of supplementation like digestive enzymes, probiotics, and hopefully they'll be able to follow a regime which is not so strong on the colon, so no red meat, no alcohol, fizzy drinks. I don't think all of them will actually follow that necessarily, but in the lead up to the colon hydrotherapy treatment, if they can soften everything and put some good stuff in, we can get a lot deeper in the cleanse. And we've got some people already doing that because they are the people that are knowledgeable about the season change in the body, and they need to warm the body up, etc., etc. After the cold spell, the body wants to warm up. If we can make that transition very nicely, I think it would be a good thing, and we're going to document it and record it. So maybe I'll be speaking to you again later to let you know what those results are.
Brilliant. Give us 3 things that you think we should all be doing to keep our bowels functioning properly.
Drink more water. Number 1, but don't drink cold water with ice in it. Room temperature water with a slice of lemon, or hot water with a slice of lemon for me, especially first thing in the morning, that would be my number one, because that's easy to do. Nobody will say, oh, I can't do that, it's too tricky. So simple things, just drink more water. Have a bottle of water with you, get a bottle, put it in your bag, in the car, all of the time. That's what I would say is the first one. The second one would be to cut down on the dairy, because that's really mucus forming, and dairy and cheese and anything from a cow, so milk, dairy, clogs the system up, and you don't need anything with that. And the third one would to be kind to yourself. Just if you're driving in the car and you're racing to somewhere, when you park, just take a deep breath before you get out of the car. Go to bed a half an hour earlier, turn the television off, just be kind and nice to yourself, because that will stop. It won't stop. It will just make a little punctuation or a little breathing space in the stress. And the stress, if stress has a little breathing space, then so does your digestive system will just have a little bit more of a chance. But yeah, and don't put yourself under too much pressure to be perfect.
Brilliant. Lisa, how do people get in touch with you, and where are you based?
We are based in between Guildford and Woking in Surrey, just off the A3. You can get all the information on our website, which is www.digestivecareexperts.co.uk. So that's just as it sounds, digestivecareexperts.co.uk. There's a free report on there if you want to put your information in. There's loads and loads of pages about digestive care, digestive disorder. There's also a page on there to check whether actually the symptoms that you have warrant coming to see us. So everything's on the website, and feel free to give us a call or send us an email with any questions that you've got.
That was absolutely fantastic. No nonsense advice from Lisa Arthur in Guildford, Surrey. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you very much for listening, everybody. Thank you.
Brilliant. Hello everybody, welcome back. Did you enjoy the Foo Fighters? My favourite. Wasn't Lisa brilliant? She was great, wasn't she? So all about gut health today. And Yes, and how important it is, and basically how important probiotics are is what I'm now going to talk about, really. But hello, everybody. So hello, Farron. Thank you for putting stuff in the chat box. Come and say hello to me in the chat box. You know how I love to chat to you all. And Josh, hi Josh, Lee. God, it's all moving really fast now. Anna, hello. Who else? Let me just scroll back and see who else. Oh, it's just the four of you at the moment chatting away to each other. Is that it? No. Come on, everybody, come and say hello. Ian, alone. Is that how you say that, Ian, alone? Anyway, thanks for joining me. This is the second half. And I'm going to be chatting about probiotics, which actually outweigh our brain. Isn't that astonishing? You know, typically, like kind of the human brain weighs about 3 pounds, and the healthy human body will have about 3.5 pounds of probiotic bacteria and orgasms. That's a great start to the show, isn't it? Organisms. Oh no, I started myself laughing. You know, and your heart only weighs about a pound, just under a pound approximately, and the liver weighs about 4 pounds. So you can see our probiotic bacteria are one of kind of what is considered to be one of the largest organs in the body. And, it is absolutely amazing. I'm always amazed at how, our body functions. And I love the physiology of our body. I really do. And probiotic bacteria is really key to having good health. It truly is. And it starts from birth. That's the thing as well. It really does start from birth. And, we often only think about our gut when we get things like IBS and we've got diarrhea or constipation and things like that. But actually, it starts as soon as we are born. In fact, it can start before then because, the woman who is pregnant really does need to make sure that they're taking in probiotics to make sure that they then pass them on to the baby on birth. And, a proper vaginal birth is really absolutely key for a healthy child. And I will always ask, how was the birth with my clients? What was your birth like? Was it normal? Was it a cesarean? Things like that, because it gives me so much information. Because, if you have a proper birth, a vaginal birth, then basically, the vagina is lined with your probiotics, with all your bacteria, and the child passes through that. And then the child takes those on. And it's actually really, really important. It's important to pass that bacteria on to the baby. And it's basically almost like considered the first probiotic inoculation. And it actually is called Bifidus infantis. So, it's actually shown to be really, really quite key. And only about 1% of cesarean sections actually give that bacteria to the child. And therefore, it is important to give this dose by actually having a proper birth if you can. And then you've got the consumption of the breast milk and everything, which actually gives more probiotics. Wow, our bodies are just set up to do this. They truly, truly are amazing. Our bodies are, they really are. Because the colostrum basically has about 40% probiotic content. 40%. I wasn't even sure until I started researching this. I wasn't even sure that was the case. It just blew me away. And often my clients are completely nonplussed when I actually ask about birth. I go back to birth when I'm doing like a treatment plan and I'm taking all of their health history, and they're like, well, why would you want to know about birth? And why do you want to know if I was breastfed? And it's actually because it gives such an important start in life. And therefore I can see if the body hasn't been given those bacteria and it hasn't been, passed on correctly, then in effect, there is a higher likelihood of infections and a lowered immunity for that child and throughout life from then onwards. So yes, probiotics are important for a good start in life. And Captain, of course you're going to pick up on my Freudian slip indeed. You know me. I do it to get you all going in the chat box, don't I? And Anna, hello. And Josh, I just get demineralised myself. What on earth is that about? And Debbie, where is your mind? I just read it wrong. I got a series of notes in front of myself. And where is my mind? It's like a Pixies song, isn't it? Maybe I'll play that later. Nolly's saying, I don't trust doctors anymore. I hold no trust in them, so I approach the old dictum, know thyself, and I completely agree, Lee. You know, I believe you need to get back in touch with the dashboard of your body. The better you know yourself, the better you know that you're out of balance, and how you know, and you know your own health, and then you can really see what's working for you and what isn't working for you. Talk about distilling things and demineralizing. Did I miss something there? That's interesting. I shouldn't start with the chat box, should I? Once I start looking at you in the chat box, I get really distracted. But yeah, probiotics are really quite important, and and Lisa was talking about good gut health, and it is quite key. And then there are studies out there which show that infants basically, when they're given probiotics, they have a lower frequency of things like colic, and they need fewer antibiotics. There's masses of research around probiotics and bacteria. There really, really is. And it annoys me about all the Health Claims Act. When they were saying that we couldn't make health claims against probiotics. Astonishing in many respects, when there is so much research going, that's happened on them effectively. But there was a really interesting Estonian study basically back in 2006, and they go back way, way beyond that, to be honest, but it showed that infants given probiotics had grown more than a placebo group. They grew more. So not only does it help fight off bacteria, but actually it also helps with the overall growth. Because of course, if your body is putting a lot of energy into healing itself and fighting off bacteria all the time, then it's not going to be putting it into growing. And therefore, if it has the bacteria there in the first place, it doesn't have to put anywhere near as much energy into it, and therefore you can grow more. And this is what this study showed. So it actually has a massive impact having good probiotics, bacteria in your body, and actually setting off, your children to a really good start in life. And that means you taking probiotics if necessary and eating probiotic foods and then passing it on to your children. So let's see, anything else going on now? But there are 10 times more probiotics than cells in our body. How fantastic is that? I just love physiology. I just think it's amazing. I really do. 10 times more. We are 70 trillion cells approximately. Amazing. So, that's hundreds of trillions of probiotic bacteria and yeast that we've got. Hundreds of trillions. We are just, this whole pool of cells and bacteria swimming around. Most people think that probiotics only live in the gut area, but actually they are throughout our whole body. They are genuinely throughout the whole tract and throughout everywhere, basically. And you'll know that most nutritionists and naturopaths, they basically focus on the gut area, and most probiotics actually live in the colon area, and effectively that's where most people tend to think that they are, but actually they are throughout the whole body. But we have massive amounts, in the nose, in the mouth area, all around your gums. I've got them. They surround our lungs and all the sac around the lungs. Isn't that brilliant? They're in our stomach. They're within our joints, our armpits, our toenails. Under the toenails. Isn't that amazing? Even between the toes, which is why you tend to get fungal infections in these places, they're in the urinary tract. Wow, just absolutely everywhere. We are bacteria. We're just a swimming pool of it. An amazing body that we have, and it's designed to function really, really well with them all. They all live symbiotically. We have this symbiotic relationship with our bacteria. We truly do. It's nicely balanced. Our ecosystem is so just, balanced. And it's so easy to just knock it out of balance with the things that we do. And our probiotics within our gut area, within our body, are basically responsible. And I would tell my clients the gut area is responsible for about 70 to 80% of our immunity and our immune response. Most people do not realise this. So people will come to me with all sorts of things like headaches and pain and things like this. And I will start looking at the stress and the impact that it's had on the gut and all the bacteria. And they're like, why are you working on my gut area?
Why aren't you working somewhere else? Why aren't you working on my head? I got a headache. And why aren't you working on this, on this joint area? Because, this is where my pain is. Actually, I'm going to look at, one of the key areas that's actually responsible for our immune response. So I always start to work in this area. Getting the probiotic balance absolutely right. Because they stimulate absolutely everything from our T cells to macrophages. Medical journals show that basically probiotics attach themselves to enterocytes. And basically these are like the tall cells found in kind of the mucosal lining of your small intestines. And they're responsible for your final digestion and absorption of nutrients into the bloodstream. So if you don't have that right, you cannot break down and absorb your food properly. It really doesn't work. This is why it's such an important relationship the ecosystem of your body has. And the thing is, probiotic bacteria basically have to block pathogens from entering the bloodstream. Otherwise, you'd have them going in by huge numbers. You'd be bombarded. You'd be out flat on your back all the time. Considering, if the bombardment we get with all of our chemicals and things like this all the time, and the constant bombardment of bacteria we have, we would. So they're really, really key for activating the cytokines and basically coordinating the whole immune response. Amazing. Really, really are like flags. And the other thing is probiotics actually produce antibiotic chemicals within the body that help us to fight off pathogens. How amazing. And most people do not realise that. They think that antibiotics are something that we put in separately, so they're like an addition to the body. And yet we have them already inside our body if we are doing the right things, like eating the right diet and not putting pressure on our gut, not allowing waste to build up. And this is what Lisa was talking about, when the build-up of waste within this area, if you've got all those meals, you've got 30 or 40 meals built up, and all of that toxicity is going back into the body. The body has to fight that off. It cannot do its job within that area. So you imbalance that whole gut, bacteria level so easily by not emptying and cleansing the bowel and not allowing the elimination to happen due to your diet and other things that, like stresses and stuff. As soon as it starts to slow down, all of this starts to be reabsorbed and the body's immune response basically drops significantly. You change your pH levels significantly. You affect the body's ability to absorb and break down the nutrients for yourself. It has a huge knock-on effect. It truly does. And we can stop really quite easily the ability to produce our natural antibiotics, which are designed to actually, reduce the populations of pathogens. Our body is perfectly tuned for killing these invading pathogens, but as soon as we put the wrong foods in, we slow everything down. It really can have a true knock-on effect that will affect the whole body, not just part of it, not just the gut area. Just often where we notice stress, people will say, whenever I'm stressed, my gut is either constipated or I have diarrhea, one or the other, or I've just got a stomach ache, or I've got bloating. And that's one of the key indications, one of the first indications, but it's then having a knock-on effect on the rest of the body. Because if you cannot absorb those nutrients and you are stressed, you eat up nutrients when you are stressed far faster. It really can affect the whole body. And then, often pathogens, they become resistant to chemicals, and basically our probiotics are absolutely key. Absolutely key. Our bodies are truly amazing at, as soon as things become resistant in the body, if you are not putting in antibiotics, which are kind of static from medications, but if you're allowing your body to make their own, then basically our bodies will see if something works and then will actually do something else, and it will change strategies constantly to actually produce more and more effective antibiotic chemicals. That's what your body naturally does. It's an amazing thing, it truly is. So if one strategy doesn't work, it goes in with another, and then another. But that takes a lot of energy to do for the body. It takes a lot of, of basically bacteria to do that, probiotic bacteria to do that. So you have to have a good diet. You have to have that gut functioning properly to enable it to do that properly. Your body's designed to do this, but only if we're doing the right things in the first place and keeping ourselves cleansed and keeping our bodies moving, our elimination channels moving properly. And Stingray's saying, don't mention toenails. If you don't want us to mention toenails, then, Captain, don't mention them in the first place. Oh, God. You need to chop someone going. You need a pedicure. That's what you need. Someone going to offer Captain a pedicure. Probably need to take a rasp. Never mind a normal nail file to deal with that. So let's see what Josh said. If you like large claims by probiotics, the antibiotics might suffer if someone was capable of lateral thinking. They're in the lymph. The lymph is everywhere, and the nails are part of the lymph. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, antibiotics would suffer, wouldn't they? And Josh is saying a pathogen is there for a reason. An animal parasite, though not useful. Yeah. It's, and all of these probiotics bacteria are there to enable us to fight it off. And our our intestinal tract, our digestive tract, is basically similar to being on the outside of the body. It has this lining which prevents things from passing through it if it is in place properly. If we've got the right diet in place and hydration in place, then that will function. That mucosal lining will function properly, and it keeps those other bacteria out. And then because of the way the bacteria works and peristalsis works, it constantly moves it through and out the body, so it never really is absorbed into the body. That's the whole point of that digestive tract. It breaks things down, breaks all the molecules down, and what's right for us passes through into the bloodstream, and what isn't right basically is passed out of the body as waste. And it's that whole tract almost keeps everything on the outside of the body, even though it is internal, fascinatingly enough. Absolutely brilliant, our bodies are. Absolutely brilliant. You truly are. You're talking about antibiotics there, but your internal probiotics are far more dynamic. They have a dynamic strategy, which is, if something doesn't work, then something else will come in and something else. They will constantly change. Whereas, all antibiotics that we take, they have to be phased out every few years. Because as the pathogens, evolve resistance against them, which is why you constantly see, new antibiotics coming onto the market, and they constantly change them. But nature will always win against them. They always do. Because in effect, it gets used to that, creates a resistance against it, and then basically your body just, it doesn't work. Those antibiotics just don't work after it because of the resistance it's created. Bacteria always evolve resistance as part of that whole fight and struggle that goes on. It's that relationship that goes on within our bodies. Antibiotics, they kill bacteria, and they can make us better. But what isn't well known is that antibiotics also kill our good bacteria. So, they kill the probiotics. And, if not if, but our probiotics comprise of about 80% of our immune response, it will kill our immunity. That's what actually is happening, genuinely. So not only does it go in and kill that bacteria, those antibiotics, it goes in and kills our good bacteria at the same time, and therefore reduces our immunity down. This is something that most people don't actually realise. So it ends up that it resolves that bacterial problem at the time, but it can cause long-term ill health because it reduced the overall immunity. And then therefore it causes a long-term issue for most people. And that's because the moment our probiotic are gone, so the moment that antibiotic is removed, guess what? Opportunists, things like parasites, fungi, your pathogenic bacteria, they come in and fill that void. They really do. They're like, well, hey, look, there's all this space here. You've got rid of all the good bacteria that would naturally kill us off. We're in, and they're straight moving into that area. And of course, we're probably taking antibiotics because we're ill, and that has reduced our immunity, so it's lowered. It's a bit like leaving the drawbridge down of your body. We're more vulnerable at that point. We really, really are. So the use of antibiotics, they create this drug-resistant bacteria that often can't be defeated. So, and often, drugs reduce your bacteria as well. So they have an immune response as well. So lots of them are about reducing immunity. And often people aren't just on one medication, they're on numerous medications, particularly the over 50s now. I see them on, I saw someone yesterday, he had a carrier bag of medications, only had one issue going on, and a carrier bag that he turned up with. Astonishing amount of medications that had been given. One person had said that to take more than 2 tablets for more than 24 hours was dangerous. Another person said, oh no, it's okay to take that amount long term. Just absolutely astonishing. It reduces the immunity, and all these medications can cause long-term ill health because of that, because of the impact on the symbiotic relationship that our bacteria have. It is like an ecosystem. It's like our world. It's a microcosm of the macrocosm. It truly is. It's just, it's just a small version, and it all needs truly, balancing out. And Lee's saying gut bacteria is compromised by most plastic products. Studies show that people using plastics passes on residual trace elements of melamine protein. There's loads of stuff that impacts, and you're absolutely right. It's scary when you start looking at the chemicals that actually are impacting on your bacteria and your immunity in general. Then, once one thing's imbalanced, then it just has this whole knock-on effect. If you're not absorbing something, it's going to have a knock-on effect. You're absolutely right. It's not just those chemicals either. It's just lists and lists of them. There really are. Yeah. Gosh. Doesn't bear thinking about. But I see... what I see with people's illnesses over and over again and their poor health, they're due to, the bacteria taking over, often due to excessive use of antibiotics in earlier life, particularly people of my age, which is in your 40s. When they were given, automatically people took our tonsils out as soon as they got inflamed. And in effect, we were just given endless. If you had earache, you had antibiotics. You had sore throat, you had antibiotics. They were just thrown at us. They really were. And the thing is, it's not only from the medications we've been taking, but also all these things are in, like Lee's saying, in basically our plastics. They're in things like our meat and dairy products, our water supply. Guess what? If we're actually consuming these tablets, then we are peeing them out into our water supply fundamentally. Well, the pharmaceuticals in our water supply, you only have to look at the estrogen content. Put everybody on the pill, and hey presto, guess what? We're all getting a dose. 60 is so much to answer for. Wondering about infertility. At least saying anything plastic wrap, yes, stay away from it. Absolutely stay away from it. It really doesn't think about it. So... consider that aspect of things. Consider your food, because it really does have an impact. If you're healthy, then, they talk about superbugs, and, they're often talked about in the media. And, they mainly get out of hand because they put people in hospitals on antibiotics. All these people got reduced immunity anyway. Lots of them on steroids has reduced their immunity, on other medications. And guess what? They're just able to take over. This is why things become a superbug in the body. You've got probiotic bacteria and pathogenic bacteria. We internally have been fighting for billions of years inside ourselves. And, they can keep us healthy. If we have a perfect internal environment, because of our diet and everything, it allows the probiotic bacteria to actually beat off that pathogenic bacteria and keep that natural balance going on. Because you've got this war going on inside you like that all the time. It's there, that's what I'm saying. It's like an ecosystem. And we've been surviving for donkey's years, billions of years before antibiotics. That's how powerful our own bacteria, probiotic bacteria are. They do work successfully. Probiotics are good antibiotics, and they do it successfully. And they rival traditional drugs on the pharmaceutical market. This is why, I know somebody made a comment earlier on the chat box. You're absolutely right. But we think we have to do this. And in some cases, I don't deny that to go off and get an antibiotic is useful. I'm not denying that at all. But mostly they've been given out like sweets. And they've damaged our beautiful balance within the body. And all this other food that then slows everything down or stops it from working and stagnates it and changes our pH levels, changes the acidic level in the body, and basically makes it so we are reabsorbing our waste. It's just not useful at all. So, Anna, do I put this stuff onto MP3s? Yeah, they're always published. And yes, they're on YouTube. Yep, go onto my channel. It's Passport to Change on YouTube. So you can go on there. I put them out on Facebook, so they're always linked on there. And if you go to the top of the TNS page, and basically you'll see podcasts, and you'll see podcasts here. If you go into that drop-down menu, all my podcasts are there, going right back to May. Oh, yes. And, yeah, polio and tonsillectomies are one of the causes of spread of polio. Lots of things. Vaccinations. Oh, gosh, don't even get me going on that. Someone good to listen to, actually, on all that is Trevor Gunn. Really interesting person. I must get him on at some stage if I can. Right. We've got hundreds of strains of probiotics. The numbers are always really varied. And they go from 400 to about 1,000. And so, there's just hundreds of strains. I'm not even going to commit to a number, to be honest. But they all live within inside our body. And they're like residents. They're beautiful residents. They're meant to be there. And some are permanent and some are transient. That's the great thing about them. And constantly moving through. They're about 20 to 30. There's only a small number that basically account for dealing with the mass of bacteria that live in our bodies. And, like I say, they are just symbiotic. This beautiful, beautiful relationship. And I'm just going to say something about the appendix whilst I'm thinking about it as well, because most people, it astonishes me how many people do not have their appendix nowadays. And, they're considered almost useless appendages that are removed at the drop of a hat. And actually, it incubates your probiotics. Your appendix is really quite key. Hold on to it unless you really can't. Hold on to it. And if you are cleansing your bowel, if you're eating the right foods, if it's passing through and things like that, and you're eliminating, guess what? You will not have a problem with your appendix. It's meant to be there. I'm obviously astonished when it's removed. I'm like, why? It's considered just non-important. Actually, there's nothing in your body that's non-important. Please don't discard it. It's a bit like your tonsils. They're really important too. Oh my God, and I know appendicitis is a life-threatening condition, and it used to be removed all the time. But there's been research into the appendix that actually, they observed it in 2007, and what it basically showed was that when the body was under attack, the appendix would release probiotics. It would release probiotic bacteria to counter the specific type of invaders that are in your body, the pathogens that have gone in. That's how important that appendix is. It actually releases them into the second area, basically, of the body, which is infected, and then it goes off. Yeah, so it's vital. It's absolutely vital for the your probiotic bacteria production of it. So consider when you are having removed what that's going to do to your gut area. Just consider it for a minute. because from then onwards, you're going to struggle to always have a good ecosystem in that bowel area. And you need to look at if that appendix is, becoming inflamed and that gut isn't working properly. Well, you're probably not moving your bowels after every meal for a start, which is what Lisa was talking about. Your lifestyle and diet need to be addressed. You don't need to have parts of your body removed. You just need to address your lifestyle and your diet. Make the changes. Save your anatomy. Please do. Let me see what's going on. So, there's a common thing to see, the appendix scar. Lee, you're absolutely right. Everyone has an appendix scar. Yeah, it's a lymph node. To remove lymph nodes, you lose years of your life. Josh, you said it. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, the appendix, and Captain saying the appendix is part of the immune system, yet doctors don't know this. I think they do know this, in all honesty. I just think they consider it just, it's inflamed, we'll just remove it. Let's just pull it out and get rid of it. So what can you do if you get appendix pain? Guess what? You need to start cleansing that bowel out and looking at your diet and looking at your hydration levels. Okay, because there's something wrong with your lifestyle and your diet if you're getting appendix pain because it's inflamed. You need an appendix for fine page numbers. They can grow back on raw fruit. Josh, that's really interesting actually, because I believe you can grow parts of your body back. So I had my tonsils out as a child, and a few years ago, this is a good few years ago, when I went to the doctor and he said, look at your tonsils. I said, I don't have any. He said, you've definitely got tonsils, so mine have grown back. And there are plenty of people out there who believe you can grow back parts of your anatomy, so hey, get growing them back. So your bacteria, they're very delicate. They're delicate beings and they're really easily destroyed. It's really easy to kill off your beneficial bacteria, in particularly through stress. If you are stressed, and Lisa was talking about this, and I go on and on and on, stress will cause you ill health. It reduces your immunity. It really can be a killer. It really can be. Reduce your stress levels. It's absolutely key because it will affect your gut. It affects all of that area. It slows everything down. Your body thinks it's being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. It's having the same response to that. Therefore, it switches all of that area, switches all the hormonal responses to getting out of a situation. It doesn't want to be digesting at that point because digestion takes up a massive amount of energy. And therefore, it will just release it. So stress will reduce your ability to absorb and break down foods. It will actually affect all of that gut area. It will imbalance it all, imbalance all the pH. It will either slow it down, you'll either start absorbing it all, or you'll let it go. Really not particularly useful. Linked with often, when we see stress, I often see people who are eating high sugar consumption. And then tap water's often got chlorine in it, not particularly useful either. That's really going to kill off your bacteria. It reduces your immunity. That's what it's there for. It's there to kill off your bacteria, chlorine. Or not your bacteria, but bacteria in water. But then it's going to do it to your gut. So they're actually killed off. And that allows, like I said, all the opportunist stuff to happen, all those viruses and your pathogens, they just grow. It's a void. They just then take over. Yeast and fungi grow prolifically in the gut environment. They really do. It will just take, if you haven't got enough probiotic bacteria in there, they will take over. And then it becomes uncomfortable. This is where you get yeast and fungal infections across your body. This is where you start to get pain. This is where you start to feel uncomfortable, out of balance. It happens really quite quickly, and often women notice it more than men. You can get all sorts of health issues, as Lisa was kind of talking about, which actually most people don't think they're related. That's the thing. Most people have no comprehension that it's actually all started in the gut area. Most people are just looking at the response that's happening and going, this is happening to me. So I've got this pain, I've got this headache. Actually, they're not relating it back to actually that gut area. But if your intestinal integrity basically is actually weak, And it can be weakened through things like food allergies, your toxins, your malabsorption disorders, all that sort of stuff. You know, you've got inflammatory conditions then happening. Well, you know, if you've taken antibiotics, well, hey, you know, I've already talked about them. You need to take things like prebiotics, which can help you to grow a new and better gut. There's lots of things you can do, but predominantly you're going to need to be putting in, you know, your probiotics there again, restoring what potentially you've lost. You know, and there's research out there that shows that basically by putting in the prebiotics, which effectively allow, you know, the growth of good probiotics again, they actually help the intestine to heal itself and repair itself. And so you can actually do that. Nothing is, you know, nothing is a one-way street to a certain extent. You can turn most things around and restore them. Captain, so you've had your tonsils out. You got ice cream afterwards. You did? Oh, no. They tell us all sorts of things. And Lee saying, I wouldn't use public baths and swimming pools anymore. Levels of chlorine is guaranteed to make your eyes sting. Yeah. So you can repair and restore your health, you know. And some of the most important things, you know, to add are things like probiotic foods. Really, you know, they used to be in, you know, our traditional diets, and we've kind of knocked them out. And all the pickled foods, all your kefirs and things like that. But they have, you know, all the beneficial microbes in them. And therefore, you know, basically it allows the body to repopulate. So you've constantly got probiotics happening. Probiotic bacteria happening. Absolutely fabulous. Fermented foods are really, really valuable to the body. And, you know, Weston Price's work, all of that organisation show how good fermented foods are to the body. You've got things like your miso, things like tempeh, things like sauerkraut. I make sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is really simple to make, really very simple to make. Your pickled vegetables, kefir. I love my kombucha. Yeah, lassi, those sorts of things. I'm not talking about the dog, I'm talking about the drink. They're all rich in probiotics, they really, really are. And they have true medicinal benefits, much like probiotics do. Absolutely. Really, really key. And probiotics, you know, they help to keep the bowel moving. So one of the key things I will start to do is repopulate it, because it can reduce constipation. Research out there from 2006 that shows that it reduces constipation. It was done in Italy. So if you are constipated, you are not moving your bowels after every meal. It should be about 20 to 30 minutes after a meal. You know, one meal in, one meal out is what Lisa said. Then basically you need to be looking at populating that gut area, looking at your lifestyle, and looking at the food, because there's something going on there. You should not be holding on to every single meal. It should be out, constantly moving through. And interestingly enough, probiotics have been shown to stimulate production of anti-cancer chemicals, and that was shown back in 2008. Yeah. Don't want you to know that, do they? No. You know, all this research is actually out there. All I've done is gone and grab a stack of research today to show the benefits of good gut health and the benefits of good bacteria in your gut. And under the Health Claims Act, I'm not sure what they've actually done this research, because I think they've allowed 1 or 2 health claims against probiotics, but actually they were knocking them out completely, so you can make any claims against, you couldn't make any claims against your probiotics. Absolutely ridiculous when there's so much research out there that supports probiotics. You know, you've got things like lactobacillus that basically have been shown in a Tokyo piece of research that actually they reduced bladder cancer. They reduced bladder cancer. Loads of research out there. It's important to have a probiotic-rich diet, as many cultures would have done originally. Absolutely key. And you've got things like, if you want to fight off a cold and your flu and your rotavirus, your herpes, your ulcers, all those sorts of things, they were shown, they've been shown to work against that, to improve the immunity, to reduce the inflammation picture. There's loads and loads of benefits listed against probiotics, and they just, which they don't really want you to know about. Why would they? They want you to think about medication first, not actually populating your gut with the right probiotic bacteria so that actually you can just be healthy yourself. So, and the thing is as well, probiotics help with, like I was saying, with your nutrient digestion and absorption, but it also helps with the production of vitamins as well. So absolutely key, particularly your B vitamins, which are always impacted when effectively you are stressed. So you've got your range of B vitamins. You've got things like vitamin K and A, which it helps to produce. You've got your EFAs, which work in relationship with it. And also, if you want to increase your the digestibility and your bioavailability of certain nutrients like your coppers, your calciums, your magnesium, all of those sort of mineral pictures. If people come into you with things like iron deficiencies and stuff like that, look at the functioning of the bowel. I always look at the functioning of the bowel. When people say they're not absorbing their nutrients and they're constantly having to take something like iron or magnesium or manganese or potassium, particularly if we've got potassium-rich diet, look at the functioning of the bowel. Look at the probiotic bacteria there. Because, in effect, often it's happening because you've not got the probiotics in place and that bowel isn't functioning well. Oh, we've been running a book actually, Captain, on how long it'd take to mention Marmite. What was that? 1:43, almost the end of the show. We've nearly got through the whole show, Nick. I hate to tell you this, but like things like supplemented probiotics, they don't remain in the body. When I was saying the transient, some of them will stay there and some of them are more transient. So you have to keep populating certain strains. So it's important to keep eating your strains with your fermented foods. And if you are taking a probiotic, to do them regularly. So, you have to take them for periods of time as well. You can't just take them for short periods of time, and particularly with certain conditions. So, and it was shown, there's research out there that shows that some probiotics don't actually remain in the system after about 2 weeks. And that's significant when you think about it. If you're looking for long-term good health and you're using actual probiotics to do that with it because your bowel slowed down and it's not functioning properly, then really you need to be considering supplementation for far, far longer. Okay. So, and there's key things out there that actually you should really start to use probiotics with or consider the bacteria with. Things like urinary tract health. A lot of women have a problem with things like cystitis and urinary tract UTIs. And actually, there are specific strains of probiotics out there that can truly help with UTIs. And, if you've got a recurring infection, have a look at the functioning of your bowel and your stress levels and your diet. And often it's one or the other, and it's having an impact on your urinary tract. It really probably is. Let's see what people are saying. Oh, blimey, you're talking about someone's condition today. What are you all going on about? Let's see. Who are you talking about? Someone in particular. Talking about IBS. Yes, and someone's saying, Lee's saying in chat box, nurses told her not to take the vitamins and minerals I suggested she take. Yeah, it's really interesting in regards to, I often get doctors and medical people who will override suggestions about diet and specific nutrients going in, and that's generally their lack of understanding about how that area works in regards to the bacteria and the breakdown of the nutrients with it. And it's just because their training isn't in that. So they wouldn't know it, unfortunately. And so, it's just about the education and the focus of the education, unfortunately. Now, the American Heart Association is really quite interesting at times. They've actually got something on their website which shows that probiotics taken twice daily lower cholesterol. That's a piece of research that they actually had done. And they actually showed that it actually had positive effects to a point of, like, total cholesterol in the group was actually reduced by 9.1%. And I believe that cholesterol is important in the body, don't get me wrong, and everything. But they showed that probiotics can have this level of effect, and they do. This is the fact that they reduce the inflammation. They enable things to function far, far better. And, it led to, they're saying it led to reduced cholesterol absorption in the gut. It was probably the right level of absorption that was happening at that point. But it's important to learn about your ecosystem, your inner ecosystem. It truly is, because it does give you that sort of balance of good health overall, not just in that area, but overall. But it needs to be maintained. It absolutely needs to be maintained. And when your ecosystem is balanced, guess what? You feel balanced. When your intestines are teeming with beneficial bacteria and all the microflora, it keeps your immune system strong. It keeps you in good health. A balanced gut gives a balanced mind, and I find that over and over again. So when I deal with people who've got mental health issues and I put probiotics in, I make sure they've got a range of nutrients going in, particularly B vitamins. Guess what? The balance of the mind and things like depression often start to quite quickly change. It is amazing how it happens. Truly, truly amazing. So get yourselves educated on your gut area, because you've got massive probiotic benefits. You really, really have with your health. It truly pays to actually, look after this area. A little education will truly go a long, long way. And the captain said you should call in, Josh. What are you talking about, Josh? So I'd suggest you go herbal, supplemental. They're going to be less anti-herbal. And you're talking about someone's condition, aren't you? Blimey. I'm not getting involved with that at the moment. The medical people are against each other because either side knows there are problems with each other. The problem with, sometimes I find with medical people, is that they are focused on their area of expertise. So we're trained more holistically, so we look at the body as a whole. And I'm trained again across lots of different disciplines. And therefore, I don't just think of one thing that might work with somebody. I think about a number of things. So not only do I work with cleansing and nutrition and diet, but I also work with things like supplements, your homeopathics, your herbals, your botanicals, as well as energy work. So I will look at all sorts of things and not just think that one thing is going to actually fit. Whereas often your medical people are trained in one area. So they may be trained in joints or heart or the gut or gynecology or surgery and things like that. So they see it in parts. So that what they don't see is the collective body and the collective impact of what they do. So, and this is where they often end up going backwards and forwards quite a lot between them. And one person will have one opinion and one person will have another. So, and, they'll all deal with it in slightly different ways. And that's no different to ourselves. So you go to see one type of nutritionist and they'll deal with it in one way. You come to see someone like myself who's more of a naturopath, I'll deal with it in another. And, it really depends on what resonates. It really depends on what works for you. Because often, if you know yourselves, the belief system that we have will enable us to have good health or bad health. Really comes down to what you believe half the time. It really, really does. So, there you go. So educate yourself, guys, because probiotic benefits, you can protect yourself from allergies because it enables that mucosal membrane to function properly. It aids your digestion, as I've said, and all the breakdown of those nutrients. It helps you to fight off things like the viral, your fungal, and your bacterial infections. It even helps things like, all your mouth, or the bacteria in the mouth to function properly, and your enzymes or the saliva, to actually break down your food properly. All the way through that tract, it enables the breakdown of that food to truly happen. It balances all the gastric juices in the stomach and all the chyme, and then it enables all the proper breakdown of your proteins, your fats, and your carbs. Because often I see that happening. People will think one thing's happening. It's often the fact that the stress is preventing the breakdown of food from happening properly. It enables things like, you to absorb your nutrients properly. Indeed. And you're expelling, and they enable you to actually eliminate properly. Because elimination is absolutely key. What goes in has to come out. You've got to get it back out again. Cannot just have it hanging around. It's never going to be good if you've got it hanging around. Right, so let's just see what's going on in the chat box. So I'm not a fan of supplementation so much as hygiene, glandulars and herbs. I see the 100 trillion cell process and the massive amounts of bacteria, as I guess is smarter than us. All right, blimey. It's getting a bit more complicated than I'm used to. We'll deal with that later. Josh, indeed. I quite like supplementation. It depends. So we put them in, as naturopaths, we put them in to actually deal with specific issues and to deal with, deficiencies and gaps. But, ideally you wouldn't be on it forever. Unfortunately, often our food chain is not got minerals in it that we actually need. So sometimes we need to be on some stuff for a period of time. Okay. So things like, your probiotics help with surely with the resistance, building your immunity, and they are pre-carcinogenic. They act on those compounds that basically mutate and produce cancer. So, and I've already talked about that. So you don't have to have ill health. You can have the perfect body. You just need to be doing it right. And you just need to be doing the right things to prevent yourself from getting ill. And good gut health is absolutely key to this. And your probiotics are nature's truest form of antibiotics. And these organisms basically help your body to build long-lasting immunity. They really, really do. If you want to fight off illness and disease and keep yourself young and beautiful forever and ever, then you need to be looking at your gut health. We've got this whole war on cancer, as they call it, going on. And actually, I've talked to you about the fact that we have got research showing that probiotics actually help with things like bladder cancer and was shown to support that and reduce that from happening. And they can be resolved if we just ate a beautiful, supportive, natural diet, hydrated ourselves and didn't live stressy lives and cleansed ourselves. Right then, guess who we've got up next? We've got the beautiful Shazise coming up. He is the master of the Tesla coil. He's rather fabulous indeed. And, I'm just a warm-up pack for him at the end of the day. You'll be on a roll. Oh my God, I'm being told he had a video on where he was running around in his shorts. I missed that. That's like Shazise porn, isn't it? Let's face it. Oh my God. I'm told it's how to panic in response to global warming. How fantastic is that? I am truly the warm-up act on a Saturday to get you all ready for him. What more could you want? He's fabulous. He truly, truly is. Enjoy the roller coaster ride that he is. Enjoy your weekend. Nick Rhodes, shotgun. He talks in my ear, which sometimes means that I have a conversation with him rather than yourselves. You've always been there. You've always been great in the chat box, and you've gone off and resolving somebody's health issue today, which is quite nice. Keep doing that. Thank you very much for coming along. enjoy. I've got no idea what Nick's going to play.